we're waiting for us is the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burkhart. Morning, Alex.
Morning, Kevin.
Thank you for joining us. Now, you want to talk about, and I think we all want to talk about, the China spy case. There is the Opposition Day debate, I believe, today. I was speaking to what I find disconcerting about this saga. Obviously, there's been some terrible mistakes made. Clearly, the government was involved in essentially collapsing this trial against two potential alleged Chinese spies.
Yep.
Who of course deny their offences, because we're told that the government's chief security advisor, Jonathan Powell, said we cannot characterise China as an enemy of this state in that trial. The government kind of denied this. Now, I spoke yesterday, Alex, to Dan Hodges, the Mail on Sunday columnist, and I was struck by something he wrote last week. Right there, it was actually in the Daily Mail. He said, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, lied to the House of Commons today. So what Dan and a number of other observers, a number of other Westminster insiders are saying, that this complete mess, the government's technique to try and get out of it, is just to lie to us. Very worrying.
Very worrying. And you're right, and Dan Hodges has followed this story very, very closely. I mean, behind all of this, Kevin, is the fact that this is one of the worst cases of alleged spying in recent decades. You know, it's said that spies working for China were going through material that were coming out of MPs' offices. This is, it goes to the heart of our democracy. It goes to the very foundations of what of how Parliament works. And you'd think in those circumstances that the government would strain every sinew to make sure that the trial went ahead. And instead, it was clear yesterday, select committee hearing where key witnesses from the government were pulled up and the prosecutor themselves was pulled up, that they didn't do that. Not only have they not done that, the government's story has changed several times since we've been asking them questions over the past few weeks, and we're saying today, enough of the nonsense, let's have full transparency, publish what happened in those key meetings in September when all of the heads of the different departments got together, show us exactly why you chose not to comply with the requests of the CPS so that we can understand why you didn't want this case to go ahead.
Yeah, you got the government saying, well, this was nothing to do with us, this was the Crown Prosecution Service's decision, and the Crown CPS saying, no, you basically took away the foundation stone of the prosecution, which was these two guys were allegedly working for an enemy of this state. If you say we can't call China an enemy, then the case collapses. Government saying nothing to do with us. CPS saying yes, it's everything to do with you. And then we have this is where Dan Hodges and other people say the Prime Minister just turned around to the Commons and lied. It was when your boss Kemi Badenoch, in a very good performance at PMQ, said to the Prime Minister, are you telling me, we're talking about Matthew Collins here, the Deputy National Security Advisor, who is alleged to have taken this decision to tell the CPS, sorry, we can't characterise China as an enemy. Kemi said to across the dispatch box to the Prime Minister, are you telling me that a very important point of national policy, international policy, our approach as a nation to China and its spying, that everything, this very important issue was entirely decided by one man, a reasonably junior civil servant, the Deputy National Security Advisor, Matthew Collins? Do you remember Keir Starmer's answer? To much hilarity, he went, yes. I mean, is he expecting us to believe that?
It's unacceptable. I mean, look, we have a saying in Westminster, we all have heard many times, Kevin, which is that advisors advise, ministers decide. It's not for advisors to make government policy. It's not for advisors to decide what the government is going to do on any day. The advisors suggest different ways of working through. But ultimately, responsibility lies with ministers, and ultimate responsibility lies with the Prime Minister. And I think it's quite shocking that the Prime Minister has persistently refused to take responsibility for what's going on here. He knew, we now know, he knew days in advance, he personally knew that days in advance that the case was likely to collapse, and he did nothing. We know that the Home Secretary knew that the case was going to collapse, and her aides have been briefing that she did try to do something. Why did nobody grip this? Why have we ended up in a situation where one of the worst cases of spying against British members of Parliament in recent decades has collapsed? This is either terrible incompetence or it's something much more sinister. Anyway, today, Kevin, we're going to try and get to the bottom of it. We're going to force MPs to vote on the release of key papers, including minutes of key meetings. And, again, we'll see whether the Labour Party want to be honest with people, whether they want to come clean, or whether they want to carry on with a terrible cover-up.
You see, again, everything you're saying there, Alex, it points to the fact that this Prime Minister, and I guess his cabinet as well, their technique of dealing with this growing scandal is to lie to us. They're just lying. Does it worry you as a minister, shadow Secretary of State? Does it worry you that we have a government? I've never known. I mean, I've been around a few years, way too many years, to be honest with you. But
not enough, Kevin. Not enough.
But I've seen a lot of governments. I've never seen a government like this that just use lying as a technique of dealing with all sorts of issues. Does it worry you? Did you agree with what I'm saying, that this is a government that just, its default setting seems to be to lie to the people? That's not good enough.
I think that this government's default setting is dishonesty, and I think that's because they don't know how to handle power. They got in the election last year, and they immediately hit the skids. We had the Lord Ali scandal straight off, and then we had this disastrous budget which has damaged the economy, something dreadful, and then we've gone on to have Angela Rayner, Peter Mandelson, Morgan McSweeney, and the list goes on and on and on. And now we're in the middle of something really serious, which is national security and the security of democratically elected members of Parliament. And I just don't think they have the backbone to deal with it. I don't think they have the backbone to make the right decisions or take responsibility for them. And I do think that's enormously serious.
Well, good luck at the debate later today, Alex. Can I just ask you a quick sort of news?
Thanks, Kevin.
Can I ask you a quick news question before you go?
Okay.
A lot of talk about this prisoner, Britain's best-known asylum seeker, sex offender Harish Kabatu, being farcically released from jail on Friday.
Yep.
Robert Jenrick yesterday skewering a rather furious David Lammy, who seems to think that the people to blame for the release of this prisoner were the last Tory government. Not quite sure where he gets that from. But this government said over the weekend, when we get this guy, he'll be deported on Tuesday, as in today. That got watered down. He'll be deported within a week. And now he will be deported as soon as possible. How much faith do you have in this government to deport this guy at all?
I think you know the answer to that one already, Kevin. I don't have faith in this government to tie its own shoelaces. I know this is totally. The truth is that it's one scandal that this guy gets to the country illegally in the first place. It's another scandal, absolute scandal, that he assaults people, women and girls in Epping, and then there's the final sort of insult to the British people is that he's accidentally released and has to be rearrested. So look, I think the chances of them successfully deporting this bloke anytime soon are very, very small indeed. And that's going to expose just how incapable they are of handling government.
Alex, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Alex Burghardt there, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Let's go straight over to the political editor of The Independent, David Maddox. Hi, David.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very, very well. Just talking to Alex Burkhardt there about the debate today about the China spy trial and this extraordinary syndrome where the government seems to be continuing to say, well, it's nothing really to do with us. It's this guy, Matthew Collins, who was Jonathan Powell's Deputy National Security Advisor. He's the one that decided the entire nation's policy on whether or not China was an enemy of the state. He's the one who's entirely responsible for it, and also the decision, it's the Crown Prosecution Service who collapsed this trial, not us. This is all claptrap, utter rubbish, isn't it? What do you think about Starmer's technique of dealing with this escalating crisis, which is just to lie about it and say nothing to do with us, Gov, nothing to see here? Nonsense, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's as you were saying, their default position is always to blame somebody else for problems under their watch. I mean, they're blaming the previous government. The previous government takes a lot of responsibility for a lot of things, frankly, but they automatically blame the previous government for literally everything. The problem here is that this official they want to blame, and Alex is absolutely right. Officials advise, ministers decide. That's the constitution. Actually changed his evidence after Labour came to power, and we've seen this in the things they published. He said they were a threat when the Conservatives were in power, and then suddenly he didn't. Now, there's all sorts of speculation as to why he may have done that. But this government is overtly flirting with China for good or ill.
Indeed. Moving on to our old favourite, the migrant crisis, the Prime Minister announcing yesterday, actually, it's in the papers today, that announcing, to be honest with you, David, yet again, that asylum seekers will be moved or no longer put into hotels, but instead into disused military barracks, disused holiday camps and the like. They named a disused barracks in Scotland and another one in Sussex. Well, that won't make much difference. We know they're still commandeering hotels to put these people into, so they're not really telling the truth about this, and they seem to announce this every single week. We're going to cease the use of asylum seeker hotels, and yet they don't. We also learn that they're spending more and more money on asylum seeker hotels. This migrant crisis, if you add the absurd one-in, one-out scheme into the mix, this migrant crisis is drowning Keir Starmer, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the crisis that kills governments. I'm afraid it killed the last government, and it's going to kill this government as well. Let's not pretend here all those kind of switches in the red wall to reform and things, all those votes which collapsed in places like Caerphilly. A lot of it's based on people's perception of what's going on with the migrant crisis, their anger about it. And, the problem is that they're constantly doing sticking plaster type things to try and show that they're trying to do something without actually achieving very much. And that's the issue here. And it's always worth looking at the small print of their announcements, because when they first announced that they were ending the use of migrant hotels, I think it was by the end of this parliament. So, several years ahead, just to give themselves a bit of time. I mean, frankly, I think there's a big question mark that they will even achieve that. I mean, it's not as bold as stop the boats, but it's certainly something that could hang them.
Stop the boats, smash the gangs, and so on and so forth. And I think that the government, they've become so obsessed by criticism of the use of asylum seeker hotels, 4-star hotels, that we think will be costing us about £15 billion over the years to come. So they keep saying, oh, well, we're going to stop using hotels, as if the only thing we're worried about, the people of Britain, the long-suffering people of Britain, is where we put these people. No, what we're worried about is how we're going to stop them coming. They seem to have lost all focus on the centre of the issue, which is to try to solve the crisis, try to stop them coming. And the one-in, one-out scheme is frankly, you know, hilariously bizarre. It's just a sick joke.
Well, I mean, it doesn't seem to have stopped the boats coming.
It certainly doesn't.
If the idea was that it was going to put off the gangs and put off people wanting to pay stupid sums of money to go on these small boats, it clearly hasn't. I mean, as we saw last week, somebody's paid twice to have another go. And it's... I mean, as I say, it's not just this government, actually. The only government in the Western world that's actually succeeded in dealing with this crisis appears to be the one over in the United States. This is dragging governments down left, right and centre. I mean, look what's happening in France. Look what's already happened in the Netherlands and in Sweden and places like that. It's, you know, voters are fed up with it, clearly, and, you know, for good reason. And there doesn't seem to be any real solution apart from empty slogans.
I want to ask you about the grooming gang scandal in just a second, because that is another massive problem for this government that is growing by the day. Do you have any idea what Keir Starmer, he was talking about asylum seeker hotels yesterday, in Turkey. Do you know why he was in Turkey?
I think he was there on a NATO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, David. I'm just saying it's this never hear Keir thing. I mean, this guy is always on an aeroplane, isn't it?
Well, I mean, there's a point here that his, you know, you could debate whether success or not, but where he has looked good and where he is more appreciated is on the international stage. He's dealt with Donald Trump well. You know, a lot of the kind of European leaders like him. He gets a good hearing of it, and some of his better hits have been on the international stage. He hasn't got many, or if any, on the domestic stage. So he's already in that kind of what would normally be a late prime ministerial period of trying to up his ratings by going abroad. And that's where we are. Normally, you've got to be in power for about 7 or 8 years before you have to hit that point. He had to do it after about 6 months.
I would say, David, that on the world stage he wasn't exactly triumphant, was he? Was it 2 weeks ago in Egypt at Sharm el Sheikh where he was utterly humiliated? I think the only thing you can say about him on the world stage is he's slightly less catastrophic than he is on the domestic stage.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was as humiliating as some. I mean, at least Trump kind of called him out. I mean, Trump has actually been amazingly one of his best friends in terms of trying to build him up. And be good to him. I mean, it's you know, whenever Keir's in trouble, Trump will step in and say, "No, this is a great guy. Love working with him. Love taking money from his country." You know.
Yeah. Trump kind of tends to say that about anyone he's talking about. Yeah, great guy, really good guy, really.
He doesn't get the Carney treatment though, does he?
No, I guess not. I guess you got a point there. Can I just ask you though, David, about the grooming gang, the rape gang scandal, which again I think is becoming. It's right up there with the migrant crisis when it comes to this government. It is becoming an all-consuming problem for them insofar as, you know, they've dragged their heels. They didn't want to have a national inquiry, public inquiry, when we clearly needed one. This is the biggest sex scandal in British history. The Louise Casey report last May was it, forced the government, forced Starmer into conceding, all right, then we'll have a public inquiry, a national public inquiry. That was in early June. Here we are 5-6 months on, still haven't even found anyone to chair the inquiry. Grooming gang victim girls, 4-5 of them was it last week, all quitting the inquiry, all quitting the victims panel, saying this is a cover-up, we are being treated with contempt, we are being ignored. They all hate the safeguarding minister Jess Phillips, who they say is about as much use to them as the chocolate fire guard. They want her fired. and now we're being told, oh, the inquiry can't happen until at least next year. And the nation are furious. Nigel Farage, I hesitate to say cashing in on it, but he's certainly making political capital of the fact that Labour is making a massive mess out of getting this inquiry, this public inquiry that the public demand in getting it going, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Reform much to talk about this, because they promised to do their own version of an inquiry and never bothered. So, you know, Nigel was a bit late on the show with this one, but compared to others. But no, I mean, frankly, look at this government. It is an appalling mess, yet another appalling mess. I'm actually surprised Jess Phillips hasn't been sacked yet, not because of whether she's a good minister or not. I think she's actually a much more decent person than people are willing to say. But because the normal reaction of Keir Starmer to a real terrible problem is to sack somebody, and she's the obvious person to do it. She was actually the only Home Office minister to survive a reshuffle, interestingly enough.
Well, I reckon, David, what will happen to her pretty soon, I think she'll be shuffled into another job.
Yeah,
rather than sort of humiliatingly sacked. But I think she's become untenable as a safeguard.
Yeah. I mean, it can't continue with her in post, because the victims have clearly lost confidence in her. So they either want this inquiry or not. But, you know, there's political reasons, aren't there, that they resisted an inquiry. They've got all these seats where they almost lost to these kind of Gaza independent type votes, Muslim votes. They've got all, it's Labour councils, I'm afraid, which were almost universally responsible for failing the victims and failing to tackle the perpetrators. So, you know, it smelt bad from the start. And now, I mean, the one solution, the one thing he can do is to just bend to demands and actually appoint a judge to lead this inquiry, which he seems to want to resist, but just have a judge-led inquiry. It seems to be the only solution here.
Yeah, I agree. I think what he wants someone who's going to be favourable to Labour and not point the finger at the majority of the perpetrators, the majority of the rape gang members who were Muslim men of Pakistani heritage. Starmer doesn't like the idea of that, but he's going to have to get used to it, I think. David, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. David Maddox, their political editor of The Independent.